Music is geometry. Every pattern you hear, from scales and modes to chords and progressions, they're all based on underlying geometric patterns. And these patterns are cyclical and symmetrical because music is geometry, though on the surface this geometry is hidden. Like if you look at a guitar, for example, or tablature or music notation, none of these look geometric, so then what do I mean? Well, these patterns are actually hiding in plain sight. They're just obscured by the way we usually picture music. So to show you what I mean, if we take the 12 notes of the chromatic scale and wrap them into a circle like this, we're a step closer because this pattern is cyclical. And what's cool is that it's also symmetrical because every musical key is also made of the same interval patterns. If we apply the scale degrees and align interval 1 with C, for example, we get the key of C. Or if we rotate the numbers like this, we get the key of D flat or the key of D, etc. It's consistent around all 12 keys because, like I say, music is cyclical and symmetrical. So we're definitely closer to seeing the full geometry of music. It's almost ready to jump out. But first we just need to do something that makes it all more visual, and that's to rotate these notes into the circle of fifths, which is a pattern that shows how all of the notes are harmonically related. And then apply the color wheel, since all colors in this pattern are related to their neighbors, just as all the notes are connected in the circle of fifths. These two patterns are really the same. So now that we can see sound, we can also see the geometry of music. We just rotate the circle of fifths back into the chromatic scale, only now the colors highlight the symmetry of intervals that was obscured by the numbers alone. For example, in the key of C, you can see how the tritone, or scale degree flat 5, the G flat note, is the complementary color of C, and how intervals 4 and 5 are visually and harmonically related to C, and intervals 3 and flat 6 together with C, or interval 1, the tonic, form a perfect triangle, while these scale degrees form a square with the tonic and the tritone, and how the other intervals are symmetrical around C as well. And because all 12 keys follow the same patterns, the same symmetry is consistent from one key to the next, which results in 6 geometric patterns. In all keys, all of the tritones or complementary colors form a kind of starburst pattern, while intervals 4 and 5 form this geometric shape. Intervals 3 and flat 6 in all keys form triangles like this. Intervals flat 3 and 6 make squares like this. Intervals 2 and flat 7 form hexagons. And then intervals flat 2 and 7 combine to make a dodecagon. This geometry is inherent to music, and once you can see it, all of the patterns that stem from the symmetry, like scales, modes, chords, and progressions, are easy and predictable. Music theory is all about patterns. Geometric patterns that are cyclical and symmetrical across all keys. Music theory is not about learning to read traditional notation, which is more like Braille than a clear view of how music really works. But it turns out that saying this is totally controversial. Who knew? I just posted a video about the geometry of music to a very mixed response. A lot of people got it, some were
I can't believe no one's talking about the fact that 90% of the population has most of their energy in the 2 lowest chakras. When your energy is mostly in your root chakra, the 2 things you look forward to the most are eating and sleeping, which are the 2 most basic aspects of life. The second lowest chakra, which is the sacral chakra, is associated with pleasure seeking and sex. When your energy is low or you feel depressed or anxious, it's because your chakras are imbalanced. Meditation and energy work are the answers.
Of the whole chakra system. To begin with, let me just introduce you guys to what is sacred geometry and what is mandala. Sacred geometry is a series of geometrical patterns that represents the human being in the form of geometric figures. The reason why this is done is because it is believed in esoteric science and art is that everything can be represented in a mathematical way in the form of geometric figures. They believe that the brain has the potential to tap in to its own realm in a more precise and a more penetrative manner by means of going in through a series of geometrical patterns and hitting a point of consciousness that blasts you open into the infinite. Now, let me also tell you something about how sacred geometry and how mantras, yantras, and all of these things actually came into being and why. So back in the day, when everybody was ruled by kings, common people were denied this sacred and esoteric knowledge. And the reason for this is because the kings and the ministers did not want people to get this power, because they knew if they had this power, they would discover their own hidden potential and probably there would be some kind of revolt probably they would not serve the kings anymore, which eventually is what happened when science and technology started developing.